Hey, it's Rich, the Louisiana Hobby Guy. Today's tutorial is going to be on setting up the Ortur YRR Y-axis rotary roller. I'd like to see you say that 3 times. There's dozens and dozens of videos on YouTube about this particular product, but not a single one takes you from start to finish and includes calibrating so that you get a good burn on your workpiece. And it was really frustrating to me when I first got mine, and I know it's frustrating to a lot of you out there. So without further ado, we're going to just jump right into it, and I will give you all of the steps that you need to set up, calibrate, and test your YRR using Lightburn software. And like I said, as of this date, July 2021, there is no other resource that has a complete step-by-step guide. So with that, let's get started. The very first thing you're going to do, and you can find tons of videos on this, is go ahead and assemble your YRR. And we're not going to get into that. It's very simple, very straightforward. I used the instructions that came with it, and I had no problem whatsoever. Now that we're assuming that you have it assembled, we're going to position it on our bed. And what we want to do is position it directly underneath the X rail where the laser is, right below it, dead center with the laser itself. You're going to need to raise the frame of your laser to accommodate for the size of the YRR, the roller accessory. In my case, I just grabbed 4 boxes of coffee, which raised it 140 millimeters, and I put one on each end, on each corner of the laser. Now that we have the roller accessory centered underneath our laser and straight, what we're going to do is go ahead and plug in the extension cord that came with your accessory. Now you're going to make sure that your roller accessory has the stepper motor on the left side. This is the stepper motor right here. And you're going to plug in this 4-prong extension cord to that stepper motor. And at this point, you need to make sure that your laser is powered off, but do not unplug it from the wall. We want to leave that ground where it's plugged into the wall in effect. So just press and hold the power button for 5 seconds until all the LED lights go out. Now at this point, we're going to take that accessory cable and bring it around. We're going to come over here to the stepper motor, the Y stepper motor. It should have a label on it that says Y. And we're going to unplug it. So now this is unplugged. Now you're going to bring your accessory cable around that you just plugged into your rotary, and you're going to plug it into that Y cable. So these are 2 separate pictures. You can see here's the stepper motor. We've unplugged it from the stepper motor and plugged it into the extension cord. And we're ready to move on to working in Lightburn. The very first thing we're going to do is we're going to come up to the top here, edit, and we're going to come down to settings. In the settings, we're going to come up here to show rotary enable on main window, and we're going to tick that on, and we can say okay. We're going to go into edit again up at the top and come down here to machine settings. Now this computer doesn't have it hooked up, but I did go ahead and take a picture of it that I can bring in here. That'll bring up this window. These are your machine settings. The first thing you want to do is save your settings. Before we change any settings in here, I'm going to click the save button right here because we want to save the default settings of the machine so that we can go back to using it as a regular laser later on. So we're going to click save, and we're going to call that file default laser.lbset. You just need to type in default laser and say okay. Now once we've saved the settings of our machine, and you should have a folder on your desktop where you save these settings called Lightburn, what we're going to do then is come here and turn off the soft limit. Then we're going to move to the homing cycle and also turn that off. Once these 2 are turned off, we're going to come down here. Now your laser needs to be on at this point. You won't get this window unless your laser is on. I forgot to mention that. So make sure your laser is on after you've plugged it up. At this point, we're going to click the button that says write. And you'll get a little confirmation message. You might even miss it. It says settings saved to laser. Now at this point, we're going to click save again. And this time we're going to name the file rotary settings. This way we have 2 different profiles. We have our default settings for using our laser normally, and we have our rotary settings, and we can easily switch back and forth between the 2. This way, when you're done with the rotary tool, you simply load the default settings to revert to the standard laser functions. Once that's done, click OK. The next thing we're going to do is come back up to the Edit toolbar. We're going to click Edit, and we're going to go to Device Settings. In the Device Settings, we're going to we're going to tick off Auto Home so that this doesn't get passed through as a command. And we're going to say OK. Now we're going to come back up to the Edit toolbar, and we're going to click Settings this time. And this would probably be off if you've never used your rotary before. So we're going to tick on Show Rotary Enable on the main window and click OK. Now we're going to come up to the Tools menu, click Tools, and come down here to Rotary Setup. In the Rotary Setup, we don't have the chuck type, we have the roller. So we're going to tick off Enable Rotary, make it green. We're going to make sure the radio button for Y-axis is checked, and we're going to measure the diameter of one of the rollers. And here in roller diameter is what we need to set. If you don't have a caliper, and I suggest you get one because it's going to make all of your roller work much easier. Walmart's got them for about 50 bucks. So does Lowe's, Home Depot, Harbor Freight. You can get them for, $8 or $10. You can get them just about anywhere. You can get them on Amazon. I'll put some links down in the description. For those of you who want to do this the right way, you really need to put the diameter in here. On my particular roller, it is 20.47 millimeters. Now, apparently Ortur does use different suppliers, and there are different measurements that people get here. So yours might be, 20.4, yours might be 20.6. Whatever your diameter is what you put in here. And you're only going to set this once, forever. So as long as you have this roller, you're only going to set it one time. Now, we're also going to have on hand and ready an item that we're going to use to test once we have this all set up. I have an Igloo tumbler, which has about a 3-inch diameter, and I think it's 8 inches long. So I went ahead and checked the diameter with my caliper, and it's almost 3 inches. It's at 78.200. Now this particular number you will always change for whatever workpiece that you're using. So this time I'm using a tumbler. Next time it might be a shot glass. The diameter is going to be different for every project that you put on here. Then this is the only number you're going to change in the future. Right now in the setup, we're changing 2 numbers, but in the future you'll only change this one. When you change this number, it will automatically fill in the circumference. Now you want to note down this circumference at this point because this is what we're going to use to make a template in Lightburn. So once you've got your object diameter set, click OK. The next step that we're going to do in Lightburn is we're going to draw a rectangle. And any rectangle. I'm going to set it on the 00 layer, down on the bottom left corner of the color palette. I'm going to make sure that the lock is unlocked, and in the height is where I'm going to paste my circumference. I just copied it from the last screen. And I'm going to press enter at this point. The height is my circumference. And this is a template that goes all the way around the item that you're about to engrave. Think of it as a label on a bottle, for instance, and the bottle is laying down on its side. This would go all the way around the bottle and touch on both sides. Now what we're going to do is set the width of this. Now the width is the actual engraving area. So now saying that the bottle is laying on its side, this is the wrapper that goes all the way around, and this is how wide we want to make it. So if you have a tumbler that's, say, 180 millimeters tall, like mine, and you just want to engrave the top 70 millimeters, you'd set the width to 70. So we'll come up here for this example, and we'll just put in 70 and press enter. We have our circumference, and we have our engraving area. All of the artwork that we do has to be within this rectangle here. The next thing we're going to do is create an accuracy test, which some people call dialing in the machine. So we're going to come up here to our selector tool and select it, make sure all the handles are visible. We're going to press the Control and D button. And you notice it turned black. It created a duplicate copy of it. Now what I'm going to do now, and I'm going to make the width of the duplicate copy 4 millimeters and press enter. So we now have a 4 millimeter stripe rectangle in here inside our work area. The work area is the label. This is something we're going to be using for testing purposes. Now I'm going to make sure my selector is enabled. I'm going to select the outside circle. I'm going to come down to the bottom right, and I'm going to put this on the color palette T1. The T1 palette is a toolpath. It will not burn, but it will still frame. And I'm going to leave this one on the 00, which will output, and it will burn. That's going to allow us to dial in the rotary. Now what I'm going to do is position this on our work bed. Now we know that our YRR is somewhere over here. It's in the middle of the work bed, correct? So I'm going to press Control and the letter A, which will select all of these. Now I'm going to come up here to X pose and Y pose. X position, Y position. Now we know the X position of this work bed is 400 millimeters. So to get to the center, we're going to type in 200 millimeters, half of the 400. We also know that the Y position is 430. We have a 400 by 430 work plane. So I'm going to type in 215 in this box and press enter. And now this is located directly in the center of our work bed. Our rotary is positioned right here. Now the next thing we're going to do is prepare the item, and like I said, I have an igloo. This is an igloo tumbler, and it's about 3 inches wide, and I'm going to put painter's tape all the way around it to protect it so that I don't ruin it by marking the first engraving to dial in the laser. So now we've already raised the frame on our laser. It's all set to go. I'm going to hit the fire button and just position it direct, make sure that it's perfectly centered on the tumbler, right in the middle of the tumbler. I'm going to drop my tumbler on top of here. I'm going to position my laser so that it's perfectly centered. And I'm going to adjust my focus, obviously. Then I'm going to click frame. It's going to spin the tumbler 360 degrees, and then it's going to come back to the starting point. At this point, we're ready to set our cuts and layers, and I'm going to come up here. If I right click on this, you'll see it flash right here. This is what's going to burn. So I'm going to double click this. I'm going to set my speed. This is good just the way it is at 850% power. And I'm going to say okay. I'm going to come over to the laser, frame it one more time, and then I'm going to hit start. This little 4mm rectangle should burn all the way around the tumbler until it comes to the other side. And this is what it looks like here. So this is the beginning, both the beginning and the end of my burn. If for some reason yours doesn't come out this way, then you need to measure the distance between the two ends. If they're short, and let's say one landed here and one landed here, then we need to go back into the roller setup and fix that. We're going to click Tools, Rotary Setup, and what we're going to change in here is millimeters per rotation. Coming back to the cup, and let me move this out of the way so we get a better idea. So we come back to the cup, and let's say your line winds up here and the other line winds up here and there's nothing in between. What you're going to do is measure from this line to this line, and we're going to add that measurement. Let's say it's 10 millimeters. We're going to come here to millimeters per rotation, and we're going to increase this number by 10 millimeters. If your lines overlap, so let's say that you have a line here like I have and a line here, and you see the lines in between, that means it went too far. We're going to measure between this line and this line again, and we're going to decrease this number, millimeters per rotation, and then run the burn again in another spot. It should only take one try, maybe two. Mine was perfect on the first try, but not everybody has that luck. You'll see in some of the other videos that you've probably watched already. So this is the only time that you're going to set millimeters per rotation, just in the setup. If you get a clean burn like I did where the two lines met, then you wouldn't change this number at all. This number was set at 20 in the Lightburn software. My actual measurement was 20.04, just a half a millimeter off. It was just a fraction off, and I reset it to 20.04. So that's it for the settings. How do you draw a graphic? At this point, we can take and delete this rectangle because it's of no use to us anymore. We've already calibrated our roller. So now it's time to create a design. You know, you can create any design that you make. It doesn't matter what it is. I'm going to bring in a fish, I guess. And what I'm going to do here is come up to rotate. I'm going to type in here minus 90 degrees. I'm going to shrink it down so that it fits within this box, because this is our working area, so it has to fit inside here. I'm going to hold down Shift and click the box around it so that everything's selected, or you could do Control A. I'm going to come up here to the bullseye, and I'm going to bullseye that, put it right in the middle, like so. And again, imagine this as a bottle laying on its side, and this is the label. Now, any text that you put in here, so let's say I did gone, you'd have to do the same thing to it. You'd have to come up to rotate, put in minus 90, and go ahead and put that in your graphic. And again, we did fishing, we select it, come up here, minus 90, turn it, select both of those, and put it on an actual burn layer. So now we're set, and it's ready to burn. And this is exactly how it's going to burn on the laser. Now I know it looks kind of strange, you know, why don't you just keep it the other way? But this is the Y-axis. So when the rollers move, they're going to move, you know, in this direction, and it's going to spin your cup in the opposite direction. So it takes a little getting used to doing something like this, but this is it. This is all you have to do. And you can just go ahead and save this as a template, a Lightburn template. And then all you do the next time you come in is click on the rectangle, adjust, get your circumference, you know, from your item. You measure your item, you go into your tools, Rotary Setup, you put in your diameter. So let's say this next item that I'm doing is 24 millimeters. You see how circumference changes? Watch, I'll type the 4. It now changed to 75. That's all you have to do. And then we just go ahead and copy that. Say OK. Click the rectangle. Change the height by pasting in the new circumference. And then of course you have to change the width and making sure that this is unlocked. And let's say the new width is 35, something like that. Maybe we have a shot glass or whatever. That's all you have to do is change those two. Tools, once you've done setting up, Tools, Rotary Setup, change the object diameter, copy the circumference, say OK, paste the circumference into the height, and you're done. There's one more thing that I want to mention, and that is not all control boards are compatible with the rotary, and you would think that Ortur would have this addressed, but they don't. Now, the testing that I did was on a 7 watt, a 15 watt, and a 20 watt. The 20 watt machine would not work under these settings. So go to Tools, Rotary Setup, and in here, all you have to do is disable Enable Rotary if these settings don't work for you, and just go ahead and set your millimeters per rotation at 20. That's all you have to do, and say OK. And this is only if these instructions that I've just given you don't work. So if you do this and then you come back and you try and set the millimeters per rotation and nothing happens, then just go ahead and turn off Enable Rotary. At this point, your laser will just use the rotary tool as the Y-axis. And we've already gone up in here and set the measurements in here with the height as the circumference. And actually, you know, any machine you could do this. You could turn off the rotary and just use the height measurement, and Lightburn will pass it through to your control board. It'll work just fine. But there are some machines it works on and some it doesn't. Again, it's another quality control issue from these machines that are built in China. I hope this helped you out. I really had a hard time finding this information. I couldn't find the information anywhere, and I had to spend a couple of hours just going step by step, changing things myself until I finally figured it out. And it's really not hard to do if you know the steps. It would be really great if Ortur would actually include a step-by-step tutorial with their hardware to show you how to set it up in the software, but they don't. So I hope you liked this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Thank you for watching.